The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, box seat time again. Michael, off the back of the Avon City Ford New Brighton Cup. It's been at Eddington Raceway for a long time. It's significant in the build-up to the IRT New Zealand Cup, but only one horse, Terra to Love, since the turn of the century's actually won it in the same year. As I say, hi to you.
Yeah, hi Greg, big hi to everybody watching around Australasia. I hope you enjoyed your racing weekend. Look, I think we only saw one horse out of that race too, who could potentially win the New Zealand Cup this year. That's not being harsh, but BD Joe was so dominant, and when you consider the big names still to come back to the fray, one of those, copy that, is back at Alexandra Park this Thursday. Akuta and Self-Assured, we will update you on the show today. And of course, Krug, yet to return, and the Australians coming, Greg, with a couple this week, more likely to come than they were a week or two ago. I think what we saw last Friday is a very good indicator of what may happen in some of the second string races. And by saying second string, I'm not saying bad, but a race like the Hannan this Sunday coming up at Awamaru, these targets start to sharpen really harshly now for some of these trainers, because they've got to be thinking, if we can't beat BD Joe, we're not going to be winning the New Zealand Cup.
All right, so what's ahead for you on your show? The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. We will review the Avon City Ford New Brighton Cup, a race they've sponsored since 1989. ITM had a big night at Eddington. They were with the Ordeal Cup. We'll have a look back at that. We'll preview that Hannan Memorial. Find out a little bit more about the Interdominions 2023 coming to you from Queensland. Methven have had a clean-up and a race meeting, so we'll have a look at that too. The $1 Million Trot from Yonkers, and the IRT Maiden win of the week. But the Avon City Ford New Brighton Cup is the race we want to focus on. BD Joe. Here's the start, the all-important start. Smithy's Terror was on the toe and didn't really want to step away. A couple of others bobbled away, including Republican Party, and BD Joe stepped brilliantly, as did his stablemate All-American Lover, who makes her way to the lead in front of the Falcon eventually, and BD Joe actually settles in the 1-1. As they get past the mile mark, here's the crucial part of the race, Michael. With All-American Lover copping that early pressure, it was there for BD Joe to take the lead, and once he found this position, he was going to be incredibly hard to beat.
Yeah, Matt Cross called it correctly. Once Tim moved out of the 1-1, there was going to be no scuffle for the lead because the stablemate was in front. In saying that, he was the favourite, so he was probably going to get the lead off most other horses. Here's the home straight. On a night where they didn't come home very quickly, there weren't any quick closing sectionals. I think there must have been a headwind down the straight. He was good. Mossdale Ben was actually better in the last 400 sectionals, and Anything Goes was okay. A race where you looked at them, Greg, and thought, winner really good, 2 or 3 in behind, pretty good, not sure what to make of the rest, jury out, and again, some real head scratching for some of those trainers. Most people want to go to the New Zealand Cup. After that, if you're outside the first 4 or 5, you're thinking to yourself, is that the best use of my equine resource?
All right, let's hear from the connections, including the winning driver, Tim Williams. Tim, BD Joe, well, we just know he's such a pro, and once he got the front tonight, it was always going to be hard to get past him.
Yeah, he's proven that in the past, Greg. Once he has found the front and on the pegs, he's very comfortable and proven hard to catch. So you're really pleased once he handled himself well at the start tonight. It's all really panned out nicely for us, and yeah, everything went to plan.
All right, I suppose it's a case of finding a pathway now, but logic would say the Canterbury Classic. The Hannan's there as well, but do you think you'll be here at Eddington next time?
Yeah, I think Eddington's going to be the next logical target. Obviously, Steve and Mandy will sit down on the weekend and they'll map that out. But knowing them and knowing the horse a little bit, I'm thinking you'll see them back at Eddington.
Mossdale Ben, excellent again.
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. No, it was a great run, really. Rat with his run, he's pulled up great. So I think with that run, he proved he's going to be a genuine open-class horse.
Mark Purdon, Anything Goes?
Pleased with his performance, Greg. Still on the way up, I think, and just got to acclimatised to that sort of grade of horse at the moment. Sort of you'd do well with 6 months racing up in that grade.
What's the pathway with him? Have you really mapped it out?
No, not really. Now that he's in the Cup, we'd have to look at a plan now, but perhaps Awamaru, we'll just see how he comes through tonight.
Sam, terrific performance. We've got you covered.
Yeah, wrapped with him, Greg. He always sort of goes through a wee flat spot around the bend, but certainly picks it up that last hundy, so yeah, very happy with him.
Bark was very good, RJ.
He was wrapped with the run really because, look, if you watch him, he was going to fly from the second line, but he got squeezed out of it very quickly. So then he went around the field. It was always hard doing that, but I thought he dug in really deep and went a super race.
Johnny Cox, All-American lover.
Yeah, she was a good, honest race, Greg. Manners are good, put herself in the race, and probably just a little bit disappointing up the straight. She didn't kick as though I thought she might have, but it's a big step up, those Cup contenders and whatnot. So, another run under the belt would do the world.
Blair Orange, Republican Party.
Yeah, he's gone good first up, Greg. He stepped away really nice, and I just asked him to get going a bit, and he rolled out of it. So had some hobble shortness next time, but from where he settled to where he finished, very happy.
Not only did we get those comments, but we need to hear from Mark Purdon. Of course, Mark and Nathan train a couple of the favourites for the Cup, a previous winner in Self Assured and Akuta. So where are they at? Mark, just a quick update on Akuta and Self Assured. Are they on target for the Canterbury Classic?
Yes, the work's been good, Greg. They haven't had any setbacks to date, and so far they're on track to trial the week before and hopefully race in the Classic.
So pretty important information there, Michael. I know you'd spoken to him the previous week and he was slightly concerned about how they were coming up. That's good news. It doesn't surprise me they'll be at the Classic before potentially going to the Methven Cup. It would be unusual to start horses over 3,000 metres on the grass track fresh up on a Cup campaign, but good to hear that two of the favourites are on target.
Yeah, one trial into the Canterbury Classic, which we saw the other night. They go sort of 3:13 regularly in these races. Not saying, of course, those horses can't go that, but yeah, it's going to be a test for them. It's going to be really interesting to monitor that situation and see what their attitude is to the Canterbury Classic. But yep, with Copy That coming back this week, those two really big guns. Let's not forget Krug. Krug is a very highly performed horse who's a Group 1 winner last season. And speaking to Luke McCarthy on radio on Monday, he said Spirit of St. Louis is definitely aiming for the New Zealand Cup. That is our preference. We want to go there more than the Interdominion. We don't think he cops the 3 heats and final in 2 weeks for the Interdominions. So no call on Swayze yet. That's very much up in the air depending on Jason Grimson's appeal, which the appeal was heard just under 2 weeks ago. The Queensland Racing Appeals Panel have 20 days to come back with a decision. So some stage in the next week we'll have an update on where Jason Grimson can train and therefore whether he can bring Swayze to the New Zealand Cup. Of course, it could come with another trainer. And last week you broke the news, Greg, that there's a potential for Captain Ravishing to come. I don't think he'll come, but it'd be great for the race if he comes. I think he would need to probably qualify from the standing start. I don't think he is qualified from a standing start, but he would bring a lot of hype and a lot of eyeballs with him. So let's hope Captain Ravishing can come. But when you put those horses into that box, that top favourites box, alongside BD Joe, as much as you might love other horses you saw racing Friday night, it's really, really hard to draw a bow that they can win, because we haven't even spoken about Old Town Road. And even an Alta Wise Guy type horse, or even Nicolas Cage. So I think away from BD Joe, Greg, the next 7 or 8 favourites for the New Zealand Cup we're yet to see.
Yep, 46 nominations for the Cup, potentially Captain Ravishing a late nomination. One of those 7 that were nominated by Stonewall was this mare, Artie's Express. She's back in winning form. You just ruled a line through that Eddington performance. She bolts in here, as you would expect against this class of horse, 155.7. She was simply too good for them. Driven by Tim Williams, we'll hear from him post-race. Home in 26.8.
Artie's Express won it, and she barely turned to here. Won it by 3 lengths, second over line.
Tim, Artie's Express couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah, wrapped, Greg, obviously. Been waiting to waiting to let her down for a wee while now. It's been a while between drinks to get the win, but yeah, just more so how she did it and how she handled herself. It wasn't about so much what she'd done, it was how she was within herself, and you know, it was the week leading into the race was probably the key indication. She's really shown she's you know, just in her work in herself, she's, you know, coach really turned the corner now, and yeah, just really happy with her. So you know, the feel she gave yesterday at the top of the straight when we give her a bit of leather, she, you know, she really filled the hobble very nicely, which is you know, just put a line through the 2 starts ago, and hopefully that give her a bit of confidence again going forward, hopefully to the Hannan next week.
She's a high-class mare, as we know. Michael, the winner of the Southland Oaks, the winner of the Harness 7000, which is run at Eddington this week. When she's in front like that, she's big and strong. She'll be competitive. I'm not saying she can win a cup, but I tell you what, she's not without a top 4 chance.
Well, the Hannan this week's going to be a really good indicator for her, because if she can beat that next bunch, the Hannan horses, then she starts to tag on to the first bunch, almost like a peloton leaders situation. Like we have that clump of, as mentioned, 6, 7, 8, depending on how many Australians come, favoured horses, which BD Joe's already in. She can rejoin that bunch, or she gets beaten the Hannan, she's back in the other bunch. And I think she's probably good enough to be in the top bunch. With the mares, often you're concerned they're not big and strong enough, but she is very big and very strong. So whether her body holds together, don't know. But I thought it was a really good move from Steve Telfer. Smart move, separate her from BD Joe, so they won 2 races in 30 hours. But more importantly, Greg, give her confidence back, get her nice and puffed up, and go to Awamaru feeling good about life. So this is a massive race for her on Sunday, because if she can't win this, you start to say, what is the point of putting her in a New Zealand Cup? We'll know more by the box seat next week.
Yeah, and I spoke to Amanda Telfer about Tim Williams' conundrum, if you like, and who he might go with, and she said they're going to keep them separated at this stage, so he might not have to make that decision for a wee bit yet. In terms of the market for the IRT New Zealand Cup, $3.50 for Akuta, $5.50 for Copy That. If you want to go to the tab, boosted odds, you're getting $7.50 for the defending champion, the 2-time champion. Self-assured $5.50, the 2020 Cup winner. BD Joe $8, Old Town Road, as Michael said, we haven't seen yet, but he is on track. John Dickey told me that the other day. Swayze $13, IRT Express $15, and if Captain Ravishing's coming and you want to have something on him, $21. Time for a look at the Hannan, and Pembroke Playboy returns. Michael, here he is in a trial you'd expect him to win, home in 27.6. He only got there by a short margin. This week he takes on One Change resuming, Republican Party, who will need to step away, although he did the other night, and then rolled into a gallop. As we heard from Blair Orange, IRT Express. Mossdale Ben's amongst the nominations too, and he's been low flying, as is Anything Goes. So as we don't have the field in its field order, if you like, Michael, there's a bit of depth to this year's Hannan.
There's depth to the whole open class crop, and when you consider there's basically going to be a 15 or 14 horse field in the Hannan, there's about 6 or 8 other horses to come back in the Australians. We're looking at, for the first time in a long time, 2 open class crops who can race at the same time. We might have the New Zealand Cup, and on the same day the Junior Free for All could have 13 or 14 horses in it. So I think it's good that we haven't. There was a talk a couple of years ago when they redid the programming for harness racing of just having all the open class horses together, because at the time there was like, I don't forget the numbers, but there's like 12 horses rated above 90 in the country. And I'm glad we didn't do that, because then we would lose a whole lot of races, like the Spring Cup next week wouldn't have got off the ground or may not even exist. And I think we've seen enough trainers now, and it comes down to the trainers, saying, well, okay, if I'm a 78 or an 80, I'm going to have a go in open class and find out where I sit. Whereas 20 years ago, when you had the different open class system, you had to be the C9 horse, the C8 horse, you get to open class, and people thought, well, I'm not going to start against those horses, I'm not good enough. So I think now the trainers are saying, well, yeah, let's throw them in and see how good they go. And some people win that argument. Mossdale Ben has won that argument. He said to us, I'm good enough to be in the Cup, and he'll be there. Other horses don't win that argument, but there's a really cool pathway for them now. The Hannan, the Methven Cup, There's the undercard race on Ashburton Flying Stakes Day, and I think if Eddington hold that open class race about a week and a bit out from the Cup, the Kaikoura Cup is going to become one of those races as well, even though it does tend to attract one of the two of the open class horses. So I think while sometimes you try and manufacture open class racing to make it look like this thing which works with the numbers, sometimes, probably even more so in harness racing than ever before, it comes down to the trainers, Greg, and trainers saying, I've got a horse, I'm here to race, I'm going to keep it in the country, the owners want it here, so why leave it at home every week? And I think that's what we're seeing now. And as I said, some of those people roll the dice and they win. And the best example of that is Mossdale Ben.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that Junior Free-for-All, now sponsored by Entain TAB. Looking forward to that race. Last year was won by Republican Party and was actually a full field too. So, yeah, it's really evolved over the last couple of years. Just while we're talking about Lower South Island, if you like, Invercargill have come up with an Iron Horse promotion. 27,500, 5,000 to the horse that has to win one race and start the most over that period, over the 13 race meetings they have, and the balance will be split between the others in the top 10. So good on Invercargill for coming up with that initiative to attract more horses to their race meetings. Let's move on to the other feature from last Friday night. It was the time-honoured Ordeal Trotting Cup. It had Muscle Mountain on the return, and he missed the start. We'll have a look at that a little bit later on, but here he was getting to the outside of Artie by the Hill. He was very, very brave, but Artie by the Hill kicked back strongly. We're going to hear from co-trainer Robert Dunn about the performance of this horse and where he's at going forward to the big ones. There wasn't much in it at the line. We've seen this scenario before. The Dunn team beating Muscle Mountain.
Artie by the Hill, they hit it. Artie by the Hill, one and a nose. Artie by the Hill. Muscle Mountain second, third in Majestic Man. Loving the Port runs fourth.
RJ, Artie by the Hill, geez, come a long way in the last 12 months.
He certainly has, Greg. He's one of those horses that wants to be there, so that's always good. He's in, he works with you all the time. Lovely gated trotter and very relaxed in his work and relaxed around the place, and he's enjoying beach life. All
right, got the front, 27 seconds, second last quarter was probably the winning of the race. I know Muscle Mountain was enormous, but it was probably Johnny's drive that got you the win.
Absolutely, it was a great drive by him. He didn't know that Muscle Mountain had been sort of lost that much ground really, but he's not a great front running horse, so he wanted to get a little bit of separation because he can sort of drop the bit at the wrong time on him in front, so I was very pleased with that.
All right, what are you going to do with him next? What's the targets now as you work towards the Renwick Farms Dominion?
Well, we'll just probably target a lot of races. It'd be a little bit different than Sunny, where you had to, it was all about soundness with him. This fella can go anywhere you like, really. He won't do the grass track at, I don't think he'll do the grass track at Mochiferrara, but you know, he'll take on races here and he'll go to Kaikoura. I imagine he'd be perfect around that tight track. It just depends how much he needs. It's one of those things, if you don't go to Kaikoura, you've got about 3 weeks between races, so it could be a race on this card as a final race to lead up to the Dominion.
Well, the start wasn't ideal with the big fella, but gee, it was great after that.
No, yeah, it wasn't ideal, and especially being the stablemate really, but you know, hey, stuff happens, and positives, he stepped well, he felt super, and Johnny drove a phenomenal race, but you know, he was just too good on the night, but yeah, my fella's gone super.
Phil, 2 excellent runs, particularly from the old bloke, Majestic Man. Gee, you must have been wrapped with him.
Yeah, he went a really good race, Greg. You know, first up for the pair of them, I was more than pleased with the way they stuck to the task against, you know, that kind of opposition. You've got to be on your game a bit, and first up it was a pretty good effort.
Yeah, loving the Port, first up since that Road Cup victory.
Yeah.
We'll derive plenty out of it, as I'm sure Majestic Man will. So where do they go next?
Well, we'll just see how they come through, Greg, and probably look to run again in a fortnight. Yeah, just take it race by race, but no, very happy with the start we made.
So a good performance, 9th career win for Artie by the Hill, great run Muscle Mountain. Gee, there was a lot to like about Phil Williamson's pair, in particular, Michael, loving the Port. Go back and have a look around about the 300 metre mark. He couldn't get clear. I was a little bit dubious about how he would go going forward into the open class after winning the Road Cup, but on that performance, he's absolutely going to stand up.
You know, like a lot of horses who race an open class, and take away the fact he won the Road Cup, that's not the point of this. They get better. They need that racing mentally and physically, and they need to get used to the lung pain of racing at those different speeds. And he's clearly a horse who wants to be there and do the job, so I think he'll be a factor in some of these races. I wouldn't be surprised to see him pick up another big one. Really happy to see Majestic Man go well. He's got the speed to be a chance of winning a decent sprint somewhere. We've heard from the team with Muscle Mountain, maybe they won't go to the Ashburton Flying Stakes, in which case the trotting one. Maybe that could be his type of race. Muscle Mountain was fantastic. He lost a lot more ground watching that for the third time. I've seen it a couple of times than I sort of thought he did the first time I saw it, because he didn't get totally disconnected from the field, but he was a long way behind the second last horse or third last horse after he copped friendly fire from Midnight Dash, which was incredibly unfortunate. And ironically, Midnight Dash is not a horse you would think would do that to you. But the winner's a really interesting horse, because he's now, when you hear from Robert that he can trot around smaller tracks and he's obviously pretty sound and he wants to be there, he's a factor in everything. So every market now, when you have markets, you always have Muscle Mountain, Bolt for Brilliance. They're going to be first two in almost all markets. But he automatically slots into that next slot or close to it, because he's proven he can win, he's proven he's got manners, and again, he should be better for his first year in the Dunn stable. That win last week was the anniversary of his first win in the South for them. So he's had a good, hard season of racing, Greg. And I would be surprised if he doesn't win an Anzac Cup type race somewhere along the line, or the South Bay Trotters Cup. And he might win something better than that, because there's not that many horses above him in the markets, and he's already proven he can beat one who has manners concerns, and Bolt for Brilliance, who we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, we went to the trials last week, Bolt for Brilliance. We hope to have an update from Tony Hurley maybe for next week's show. So $1.80 for Muscle Mountain to win the Renwick Farms Dominion, $3.50 Bolt for Brilliance, $9 Artie by the Hill, Love in the Port $13, Mataderos also $13, and better news about him too. Maybe it's not as bad as what first they thought it might have been. And Hidden Talent, who goes, of course, to the Mares race at Awamaru on Sunday, $31 is an immense talent. All right, time for us to take a short break here on Your Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. On the other side, plenty more action, plus we build in to some excellent racing around New Zealand this week. So here's the scenes, Michael, after Fernetti won the last race the other night. Cran, Chrissy Train, of course, Carter, and a heap of his mates there. Second win in 4 starts. Gee, they made some noise. They're really enjoying the ride with this horse. Was in front and dominated from the top end. So great to see, and hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at the one-on-one with Carter Dalgety, finding out a little bit more about him on and off the track. This week, we have John Dickey, who of course trains at Old Town Road. He's trained nearly 250 winners with his son Joshua, who's now in Victoria, and we find out about his life in harness racing.
I thought to myself, that horse has improved. You know what I mean? He'd come up back from Christchurch, freshened up, and we would never have beaten Bombay.
No.
But man, he was going to run second.
Yep.
And I thought, maybe next year. And
maybe next year came, mate. He won both derbies and beat Bombay in both of them.
Yes, he did, and albeit one of them we just held on. But again, it's first past the post, isn't it?
So Michael, I've really enjoyed doing those one-on-ones thus far. Dixie's one this week, and they come out on a Monday night. Is definitely worth a look. I'm sure if you get to see it on trackside or just go to HRNZ, it'll appear there. But it's good to get that insight into what makes these people tick.
I agree. Training philosophies are always really interesting to me. I love to ask trainers how they train and who taught them to train and what they've learned since they started training. Caught the Carter Dalgety one last night, and he was great. Outstanding young talent for the industry. We could do with 20 more Carter Dalgetys, but I don't think the world's got room for 20 more people with that veracity in their personality. He's a lot of fun to have around the game, and when you saw those boys and girls the other night, we could do with 20 more of those as well. Great syndicate, one of my favourite new horses, because I know when it wins, there's going to be energy on my TV screen. And that's what harness racing needs to do. It needs to provide more energy because the gallops are just turning up the volume. It's getting louder and louder and louder. And we know how cool it is on New Zealand Cup Day when it is loud. So the more energy we can bring to those sort of situations, the better. Well done to Team Dalgety for turning up the sound after the last race at Eddington last week.
Stephen Reid's got himself another nice horse, Michael, as we go to the Sire Stakes heats from Cambridge last Thursday night. And here is Coastal Babe, but this one driven by Maddie White, hits the lead here, dashes away and actually wins really nicely. Kiss was third, Ultimate Racy Girl into second, Treacherous Miss, who ducked to the inside there, was in fourth. But nice type of horse this, Coastal Babe.
Very smart horse. Actually was purchased by Summit Bloodstock, who of course owned the slot that Encipher won the Eureka from. When you look at her there, she's got a lot of developing to do. Like, she really needs to come up in the wither. Like, she actually looks like when she came back to scale, and this is one of the key pointers for horses who aren't developed properly, they look like they're running downhill because their butt is up here and they're still to grow up the front. Some horses don't. But she, I would suggest, will. She's from that breed, the Jessie's Girl breed, which has produced horses like Pazan and a whole lot of horses that Reedman actually had a lot of luck with. And I think they suit his training. Stephen's training on his own now. Simon McMullen, who did train with him as a good friend for a long time, they've had an amicable separation because there weren't enough horses there. Reedman's only got the 12 horses, so Simon's working for IRT. So he's doing a good job for them. It's a great job. It's a great part of the business of New Zealand racing for transporting horses. So we hope to see Simon back at the races soon. He'll still be involved. He still drives the odd horse in track work. But as Stephen said, look, it's tough times for a trainer like him. And when you think of what a great record he's had, to only have 12 horses in the barn, he is underutilised, is Stephen Reid, because Coastal Babe, who I think is a pretty good filly, reminding us of his talents.
Yeah, absolutely. She looks like she's got heaps of scope about her. Lee Major took out Heat 1 of the Sires. This one, trained by Anna Donnelly, had Ben Butcher in the bike. This is with Woodland Stud. Nice type of horse as well, Michael. Really hit the line strongly here, and there were a couple in behind. Always Be Elite, I thought, was pretty brave after copping a fair bit of pressure and Cold Chisel in fourth, but no doubt about the win there of Lee Major. And when we start thinking about the Sires on Cup Day, Vesem won again at Eddington the other night. He's the $2.80 favourite for it. Lee Major into $6. Double Jeopardy, who won a couple of weeks ago for Stonewall, is a $7 chance in that big final. Cold Chisel 8, and Spirit of Anarchy, who's made such a decent impression this campaign, is around $11. Harley Pierce, it was there in second. So yeah, plenty to like about Lee Major there. Just before, while we go across the Tasman with Garrards, there's some big races coming up this week, Michael. In fact, I think there's about a dozen Group 1s, is there not?
Yeah, Victorian Sire Stakes night is this Saturday at Melton. Massive evening. It's probably the only race meeting in the world where there's 12 Group 1s on the same night. Now, yes, they are Sire Stakes Group 1s, but they're still Group 1s, all on the same night. Now, Emma Stewart, this is remarkable. Last week in the semi-finals at Melton, she won 9 races. It's incredible. Like, it's a massive machine. I saw Emma after Encipher won the Eureka at Menangle last week. She's just there afterwards, chilling in the crowd, watching the band, had her daughter with her. Well, it was just a cool scene. Like, she was just a mum out enjoying some music with her kid. And it was really cool. And then you see her come out and train 9 winners, which she's actually done before. I think she did it in Tasmania, which is a grade down. So they'll completely dominate the Victorian Sire Stakes. But if after the Warriors play on Saturday night, 6:05, if you've got nothing on, it'd be really cool to tune into that, because a very high standard of racing there as we head to that Victoria Cup, which is going to have Rock and Roll Do and Leap to Fame and all those type of horses. So yeah, there's some good things going on over in the Tasman, and they've nicely filled that void with the carnival you were at in Brisbane, and of course the Eureka. They filled that void we had, because it felt like a bloody long winter at home in New Zealand without much open class racing. So I'm glad we had something to watch.
Yeah, Mark and Nathan Purdon going well. Nathan over there with the team, of course, High Energy, now 8 from 9, and Sherlock finished 3rd in that semi and actually went a very good race. So looking forward to seeing how they progress. Speaking of Australia, Interdominion time, 1st of December through to the 16th. The head of Queensland Racing in the harness division is David Brick. So I caught up with him to find out a little bit more about the details and when the nominations close. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to join David Brick, who's in charge of harness when it comes to Racing Queensland. Thanks for your time, Bricky, off the back of a really successful Constellations Carnival, and now you build towards the Interdominion, first time at Albion Park since 2009.
Yeah, thanks for that, Greg. Yeah, fantastic. Good to see you again. Carnival was fantastic. It's great to see yourself and a number of Kiwis over here and a number of people from around Australia. But yeah, looking forward to the Interdominion. Haven't had it in Queensland, as you said, since 2009. So it's been a happy hunting ground for the Kiwis in the 2000s, which has been good. But yeah, so really looking forward to hosting that in December this year.
Yeah, look, I was lucky enough to be there in 2001 when Yulestar won for Tony Shaw, Lorraine Nolan, Lorraine and Ron. Of course, the street's named after Yulestar, and the other series winner, of course, was Take a Moment, who was only in his infancy of his career. I think he'd only had 11 or 12 starts for the Butt brothers, Tim and Anthony. So you're right, the Kiwis have had good success, and I suppose part of your role was to try and attract a few over for this series.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Interdominions involves both countries, so we want horses from across Australia and importantly New Zealand as well. I think it adds to the flavour. It's no different to our carnival, so we'd love to get a few over here. We have deliberately pushed the series back into a little bit in December to try and give the connections an opportunity with the New Zealand Cup. The way it plays out this year, as you know, it's sort of New Zealand Cup's a little bit later than what it would be as well. So we've just tried to accommodate that where we can. So hopefully we get a chance to get them here. And we know that when they went to WA, a number of them went over there and were successful on the back of the Cup. Yeah, so we think it can certainly work. So we look forward to having some here.
Yeah, of course, Smolder was successful there. Lazarus, such a great horse as we know. So it is possible. Right, so let's get to the details. Anyone who wants to nominate, Pacing Series 500,000, Trotters 250. They need to do so by the 25th of September.
Yep, that's right. Don't leave it to the last minute. It'll be 12 o'clock our time on the 25th, but certainly can nominate from now. That's live on Harness Web here, or by all means contact our racing office. And they'll nominate the horse. So, yep, get into it early, but the 25th certainly the deadline from that point of view. There is a late payment fee, but we'd suggest give that a miss and nominate now. There's no fee to nominate, and the first acceptance fee is not until the 23rd of October. So, nominate now and then see how you're going at that stage. We'd suggest.
I see this guaranteed $5,000 earn minimum, so there's an attraction there to make sure that you are getting some money. What about some of the events in and around an Interdominion, particularly the last week, because there's always things for people to do, because it's not only about trying to attract the horses, you want some participants to come from this side of the ditch as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and Queensland's a great place to be probably most times of the year, but we think around the Interdominion's got some appeal. We're working hard with the club, and as we did over the Constellations, to try and provide some social opportunities for people as well as the racing. Obviously, there's four fantastic nights of racing. The club will again put on a golf day as they do as part of the Constellation, so that's always a good day. And then from a barrier draw point of view, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to go over to Tangalooma Island and spend the day out there and do the draw over there, which will be a bit of fun. So there'll be some opportunity for the public to buy into that if they want to, but that'll be strictly limited. And then from there, we're going to take the opportunity. Blacks are Fakes still in town, so the greatest Interdominion winner of all time. So while we get a chance to go and see him, we're going to organise a bus trip up there so people can book on that and spend the day up there, go and see him, and then we'll book into some lunch on the way home. Calcutta will be run on the Thursday, and and then we head into the final on the 16th. So certainly that last week we've tried to put a bit on. We don't want to overload people, 2 or 3 events there, and then there'll be plenty of other things that people can do around Brisbane, whether it be go along the river, spend some time in the cafes and bars around there, or alternatively go and see a few of the sites on the Gold Coast.
Yep, absolutely. 1st, 5th, 9th. So it goes Friday, Tuesday, Saturday, and then the final on the 16th. Anyone looking for information, just Google ID 23, and it's all there for them.
That's right. Go to id23.com.au, or alternatively, jump on the Creek's website. That'll take you there as well. But alternatively, as I said, just Google ID23 and that'll take you there.
All right, we'll preview it on the box seat. I can guarantee you that. Thanks so much for your time, Bricky. All the best in getting the maximum nominations, of course. There's automatic golden ticket races, the Eureka, the first of those, and Cypher. If she wants to come, she's straight in, and all of those details are on that website. Thanks, Bricky. We'll be in touch closer to when the IDs start on the 1st of December.
No worries. Thank you for your support, Greg.
So good to get that insight from the man they call Bricky. Let's go back and have a look at I Cast No Shadow winning last year's Interdominion final. Michael, this was, of course, in Victoria, got the trail throughout and got home and won.
Yep, that was a typical Interdominion final of recent years, which is the Marker Pegs dominant. It was actually a really good series last year. One of those series which has been better subsequent to the series, because Just Believe won the Trotters final and subsequently he's gone on and done some really good things in Sweden. So look, Interdominions are great. I still now personally feel the Interdominions would sit very comfortably with me in Brisbane every year. Maybe not sure it fits the November, December when it's really hot. I'd love to see it sliding in there about May, move the new Auckland Cup back a little bit, and let's end the season. I know the season doesn't end, but you know what I mean. End the season by all heading to the Gold Coast in May and enjoying ourselves.
Yep. Well, you just mentioned Just Believe. This is what he did in the Interdominion final last year. That's him to the outside in the colours of Greg Sugar's Majestuoso. Obviously, Queen Elida. They're all in line to be heading to the series this year, but this was an indication of how brave this horse can be. And as you mentioned, Michael, he performed on the world stage. And well, speaking of world stages, the International Trot was run too, Michael, and yeah, it was good to see Aldebaran Zeus perform. What a crowd it was there for that Interdominion finals night at Melton last year too. Yeah, really good to see Aldebaran Zeus go an excellent race and continue this trend of horses from Australia, trotting horses, performing on the world stage.
Well, when you see Aldebaran Zeus running 5th in the Yonkers Trot, so this was early Sunday morning, New Zealand time, and he was a well-beaten 5th, but he still beat some really world-class horses home. It suggests to you that if Just Believe can be competitive and go close enough to qualifying for the Elite Loppet final, and Aldebaran Zeus can run 5th, albeit losing ground over the last 400, and there were a few gallopers behind him, where would it put Muscle Mountain? And we'll probably never find out. There may not be a reason for Muscle Mountain to go to the other side of the world, and Ian Dobson, his owner, probably enjoys seeing his horse close to home. But there's no doubt Muscle Mountain's at least as good, if not better, than Just Believe, and he's obviously significantly better than Aldebaran Zeus. So chance favours the brave. Sometimes you're not going to win these big international races, but you're going to enjoy your life and embellish your life by going to them. So good on Brett Lilly. He's a Kiwi, he went over there, he had a dig, and I'm sure he loved the experience, as did the owners. So really proud of them. Sometimes it's not about winning, and it's a pretty good indication, I think, Greg, of where Muscle Mountain and Bolt for Brilliance would sit in the world scale, in saying that these weren't the absolute best trotters in the world. But you could make a case that Muscle Mountain and the best version of Bolt for Brilliance could be in the top 20 or 30 trotters in the world, which probably is something I didn't think 5 years ago. But yeah, I think we're also seeing a lot of those really good 3-year-old trotters come through and get retired to stud a bit earlier these days as well. So interesting times, and maybe one day we'll get to see another New Zealander on the big stage.
Yeah, the Italians were 1-3, and of course Dexter finished second in that Yonkers International Trot. All right, let's move on now and have a look at the markets for those Interdominions, starting with the paces, where Leap to Fame's $1.60, Rock and Roll Do $7.50, Self Assured's in there at $11, Spirit of St. Louis, Swayze 11s and 15s for Better Eclipse and Copy That, and Old Town Road for that matter's in the market too. Just Believe in the Trotters section, $2.20, Queen Elida at $3.50, Olivici $5, Majestuoso $7.50, and Aldebaran Zeus at $17. More about the Interdominions as they build towards that series in December. Ashburton, they had a race meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they've got their big meeting, their Legends meeting, Labour weekend Monday. They've also got this tender for the stallion What the Hill. So if you want to get your tender in for the service to What the Hill, go to office@ashburtonraceway.co.nz, and good luck in that tender process. Nice way to earn a little bit of money for the club, and a big thank you from them to Woodlands for providing that. All right, we need to talk about our own competition, Michael. We'll have details next week, but through Entei New Zealand, we're going to offer the opportunity for people to enter this comp, and a total of 4 people to attend the Grand Prix Day, which is Dual Derby Day, and all those other wonderful Group 1 races, including the Trotting Free-for-All at Eddington on the 10th of December. I know Harness Racing New Zealand are running a promotion around Cup Week, so we thought we'd do one for what will be an outstanding day of harness on Sunday the 10th of December, so the chance for people to win a stack of prizes there.
So we're going to give them some questions. What are we going to do? How are people going to get involved?
Yep.
And
a question every week, Michael. One
good.
entry per week, and you can enter as many weeks as you like leading into that.
So is this like a package where they get to go to Eddington and we fly them somewhere?
Flights
and put them up
anywhere
in a
from around New
hotel
Zealand. Yep, and they'll have hospitality on the day for all 4 of them. Could be guys, could be girls, could be a combination of both, Michael, and the package will total $5,000.
Why would you ruin a perfectly good trip by doing that? If I'm a female who wins this, I don't want to take my husband, if I've got one, or anybody. Have a girls' weekend or a boys' weekend. Go enjoy yourselves. Don't ruin it by taking your partner. You're only going to bore them by taking them to the races. But that sounds like a great idea. Look, I think the more harness racing can make destination weekends, Cup Week is already one. Things like the race by grins, things like the Grand Prix, Greg, the better off we are. If you can make them a reason to go places, and that's why it's important to link yourself to other things. Functions the night before, footy games, all that sort of stuff. Really crucial if harness racing can work into those things, because people want to go and have a good time. They don't want to just go to a race meeting and go home. So that's something for harness racing bosses to think about. I went to the New Zealand Galloping Awards on Saturday and Sunday night, and I said to the organisers, we need an after party, because people, when they finish at 11:30, don't want to go home. Some people do, but a lot of people want to go to a bar and make friends and talk and enjoy themselves. And that's crucial for all those big race meetings. Make it worthwhile for people, like the Karaka Million does, or like Christchurch on Cup night, when things are really pumping.
All right, short break for us here before we get into our home straight on your box seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Time for the IRT Maiden Performance of the Week, and what a run this was. Tokyo Rose, you don't often see this, Michael. I know the closing sectionals weren't that fast, but it's what she did earlier on. Mark Jones continuing this wonderful run. Sam Otley in the bike, 57.5 mile rate, and she dead set bolted in just under 10 lengths, her winning margin.
Yeah, when I watched this live, I was like, wow, what have we got here? Then I went back through the sectionals, and she actually came home in over 30 seconds, which is very, very rare at Eddington on a Friday night to be at post 30. In saying that, it was a very slow closing quarter night. There must have been a headwind, because all night, I don't think a horse broke 28 seconds for the last 400 metres. So she's clearly a very good horse because of the horses she's beaten. In saying that, it's an incredibly strong crop at the very top end, so I'll be careful with that as a form race. just because of the sectionals and because of Greg, the fact she won literally by a cricket pitch.
Yep, she did. She's always shown talent, both at the trials and on race day. A couple of seconds and now a dominant win. Last Sunday, Methven had the first spring race meeting for 2023, and they've been having a bit of a spring clean. So I got Nigel Armstrong to get out and about and find some footage for us of just what they've done.
Lawrence Hannan, firstly, the boxes look outstanding. Tell me something of the background about it, and the Holmes block, what's that about?
Well, the Holmes family were the original people that gave the land to the racing club, and then the racing club folded and it became a trotting club.
So the design of the boxes, they definitely look pretty good. Where did that come from?
Well, we worked with the builder and obviously Rodney from Placemakers in Ashburton, and they pretty much gave us the protocol to the boxes, and we just gave the idea to go ahead with it.
So this is stage one of a few stages. When are we hoping to carry on from here?
We're hoping to carry on this within the next 6 months or so. This is, as you said, stage one, I'd say, of about 4 or 5 to complete the whole lot.
So looking at the grounds around here, it's compacted down there. There's no slipping for horses. You've extended the concrete pad out a bit. There's a few other features in amongst it.
Yes, we extended the pad out a bit there, and I think it's been a very worthwhile exercise, that, and then also we've crushed dust around the whole lot, and I think it's been well worthwhile.
Tell me something about the stables. Does it get a pass mark?
100%. No, the club has made an absolutely outstanding decision doing what they've done. The upgrade of what's happened here is just looks stunning. Plenty of room, solid. And especially the swab box and the vets clinic is probably a blueprint that all clubs should be looking at.
Great to catch up with you here, and the new swab boxes here at Methven. What do you actually think of them?
Absolutely wonderful. The boys, it's purposely built for the boys, for the safety of the horses and for them. Fantastic design. That the horses have come in today, and literally none of them taken longer than 5 minutes to go. So you can't hear the outside noises. It's blowing outside, and it's just so quiet in here. Like you can see, it's purposely built. Grant's got one side, Mike's got his own side. Nothing can get mixed up. Lovely, clean, and yeah, the best almost I would suggest in the country.
So Michael, there's an example of a club who've decided they're going to invest in their infrastructure. Not only that, the opportunity there on this show for any club who wants to put a little package together, it's got to be broadcast quality, and well, that was marginal, the unhinged team there, but you know what I mean. We're available for you to utilise, so they've done that, and now you know that Methven have been working hard.
And look, one of the great clubs in the country. They're an iconic club, not because they have that many big race meetings, but they're just a special club. They have a special place in the hearts of many people. Those big fields like Motukarara, charging down the straight of maiden trotters is one of the iconic images of New Zealand harness racing. People know the fact. I very rarely bet on the grass. I would have 2 bets on the grass a year, but it is incredibly important to New Zealand racing, not only for the horses who can win, but under the new Entain deal, the more horses in a field, the more turnover, and that's what they want. They need turnover to keep giving us more money. And these Sunday meetings have been huge turnover. It's not my favourite version of harness racing, but they don't run the industry for me. These Sundays have been massive, and Methven and Motukarara and these other places with capacity fields, including the Hannan this week, Greg, are doing a hugely important job for the industry. So I applaud Methven. I look forward to getting back down there at some stage.
All right, let's have a look where you can go harness racing around Aoteroa this week. We kick things off on Thursday night, the 10 races out of Alexandra Park, 5:20 the start. The big one though, the Lazarus at Neverly 9:17, more about that in a moment. 12:05, 10 race program there, Invercargill on Friday. The Woodlands Sires harness 7,000, 40k, 5:01 the first there, and the big day, Hannan Day, 40,000 for the 2 Group 3s, the Hannan Memorial and the Jasmine's Gift. Let's have a look at that final race on Thursday night with Copy That. Here he was trialling Michael, only a 2-horse trial, Bet Western front. He gets there nicely in the end. Morris McKendry said after the race, look, I really believe he can win himself another cup, and on the way he looks and the strength through the line, I know it was only a 2-horse trial, He takes on stablemate Simply Sam, also and that's Montana DJ. Ray Green saying on Trot's Talk on Sunday though, he might be slightly vulnerable. Mind you, that vulnerability might have been taken away with just 4 rivals this week.
Yeah, he should beat these horses. Mile racing fresh up is really tricky, but to be honest, the easiest run he'll have is just go to the front and win, because they'll give him the front. I applaud Harness Racing New Zealand for holding this race. Forget GBR, it's irrelevant, because if he gets beat, this TRB will win a stack of money. And I think a lot of people understand how GBR works. If your favourites get beaten, you make a lot of money. If they don't, you don't. That's what it comes down to. And setting a book correctly. But more importantly, as racing editor for the New Zealand Herald, on Thursday morning now, and the biggest news outlet in the country, we'll be having a harness racing story. If Copy That's not racing, we don't. Because he's a horse we can sell to the public and say, watch this. It'll be the last thing of pick 6. It'll happen. People will be interested in it. Take Copy That away from that race and away from that meeting, very few people who aren't harness racing zealots will be interested in that meeting. It's just that simple. Any opportunity you get to run the best horses in this country, run them all the time. I don't care any metrics you can show me. I've been doing this for a lot longer than most people. If you don't understand that, you do not understand harness racing, and you sure as hell don't understand driving turnover and the media landscape. You're allowed to have some lost leaders, and your superstars are lost leaders. Here's one example. 3 or 4 years ago, Dan Carter played a club game of rugby down in Canterbury and the place was packed. It's not packed every week at Canterbury Club Rugby. No. Run them as often as you can run them. And if that costs you a bit of money, which you don't know it's going to cost you money, because if he gets beat, the TAB wins a stack of money. Just do it. Don't argue about it. Make it happen. Yes, you can't have 2-horse races, but a 5er, it's plenty okay. Black's a fake, raced in plenty of 5 and 6 horse fields at Albion Park. No one was complaining.
No, they won't be complaining on Thursday night either. Let's go to Eddington on Friday night. The Woodland Stud Harness 7000. Here's Triple G. Nice horse this. Trained by Robert and Jenna Dunn. He's a really nice horse. He trialled up in excellent form by the look of it. Franco Indy beats him here. That's Franco Indy getting to the middle of the track. The Sires Stakes winner. Don't Stop Dreaming behind him goes an excellent race in the Dalgety colours there, Watermelon Sugar. But I think he can win this. Triple G takes on stablemate Double Time, Watermelon Sugar, Blueto's in there, Coney Island Lou's in there as well, and Dalton Shard amongst others. But yeah, I think he's a pretty nice horse, and I think he'll take all sorts of beating. That race first run in 2015, won by Brilliant Strike, who went on at start in the New Zealand Cup, and Artie's Express won last year. Awamaru's support card on Sunday includes the mare's race and this mare. Talk about winning by a cricket pitch. What about hidden talent here, Michael? She's got all sorts of breeding. She's got all sorts of talent. She's right in the market in terms of the Renwick Farms Dominion, and she should be winning this on Sunday.
Yeah, and look, not only should she win, but a really good support card. There's a couple of really tasty age group races. Good to see the 2-year-old race as well, which looks like it doesn't have a whole stack of all-stars horses, which is nice. So, yeah, I think Awamaru's got this right. And there may not be a New Zealand Cup winner in the Hannan Memorial, but it's going to be a nice big capacity field. We're in for a ripper on Sunday.
Resolve also in the field on Sunday. I Dream of Jeannie, who actually won this race last year, is in there too. And yeah, it's an important meeting on Sunday, and that's a deep sort of race, but I think Hidden Talent will have the talent to be able to take that out. Blue September continues throughout this month, and we have had 16 wins already. Blair Orange, the country's leading reinsman, on 5 wins already. Johnny Cox with the 3, Maddie Williamson, Maddie White, Robbie Close all on 2, Nathan Williamson, Mark Hurrell with wins there. Target is 50k, so boys need to start driving a few more winners to help a mate through. Do something blue for September. Michael, I'm going to make the bet of the week for the box seat Triple G. I just think he's very, very talented, and I reckon he can take out that Harness 7000 on Friday night, but all eyes will be on Copy That Thursday night, but also to the Hannan on Sunday as we start to ramp things up through the month of spring.
Yeah, well, Copy That has a chance, Greg, to do what only 3 horses have ever done, and that's win 3 New Zealand Cups. So I'm going to applaud him on the way through. He's a very special horse. He's overcome a broken leg, he's overcome a little bleed, maybe on a couple of occasions. He's in for a remarkable spring, and he's the story of the spring until someone comes and takes that title off him. Looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. Looking forward to talking about him and more of these horses as this intriguing spring unfolds in front of us, Gregory.
All right, that's been a box seat for another week, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. A big thank you to them. Good luck to everyone with a chance of winning a race this week throughout New Zealand. But for now, from Michael and I, it's bye-bye.